Alright, so now I'm going to go over the second study guide for Quiz 3 on division. The first thing that it asks us to do is complete the multiple tower at the right and stop when you get to 380. Now this needs to be a multiple tower of 20. So, in the multiple tower we want to start with 20, and then we just count up 20s, which is actually pretty easy to do in our head. So we just go 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200, 220, and you continue until you get to 380 like it says in the question. So 220, after that would be 240, 260, because remember we're counting by 20s, 280, 300, 320, 340, 360, and 380, and this is where they asked us to stop. So I want to mark my benchmarks in my multiple tower. So this is obviously the multiple of 1, and then I want to count up to 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 200 is the 10th multiple of 20. And if 200 is the 10th multiple of 20, then 400 would be the 20th multiple of 20. So we don't actually get all the way up to that, but I'm going to mark 400 just to remind myself that that is the 20th multiple. So this is like the halfway point, and this goes up to the 20th multiple. So now I have my benchmarks to make it easier to figure problems out that I need to use my multiple tower for. So number 2 says, how many 20s are in 380? Solve without counting and show how you did it. So all you have to do is look at our multiple tower. We have 10 here, and if you counted up to 380, you would get 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Or if you went up to the 400 and got the 20th multiple like I did, you would just be able to count backwards 1 and get 19. So 19, there are 19 20s in 380. I counted up 9 from the 10th multiple, $200. So I counted up 9 from the 10th multiple, which is 200. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I figured out that it was 19. Okay, number 3. The 10th, 20th, and 30th multiples of 20 are 200, 400, and 600. What are the 40th and 50th multiples of 20, and how do you know? So as you can see, there is a pattern here. 200, 400, 600. So I'm going to create a little diagram. I like to do things visually. So if I create a diagram here and I write in 10, 20, 30, and then what we want to know, which is 40 and 50. And I just put that the 10th multiple is 200, the 20th multiple is 400, the 30th multiple is 600. What can I figure out that the 40th and the 50th multiples are? Well, what do I do to 200 to get to 400? I doubled it, or I added 200. To get from 400 to 600, I'm adding 200. So in order to get from 600 to the 40th multiple, I'm going to add 200 again. And 600 plus 200 is 800. And then to get to the 50th multiple, I'm adding 200 again. So 800 plus 200 is 1,000. So the 40th multiple is 800, and the 50th multiple is 1,000. Now we can look at the back, and we have some division problems. So let's start with this first one. I'm going to set it up like I'm going to solve it. 280 divided by 14. So I always start with 10, because 10 is an easy multiple to do in our heads. 14 times 10 is 140. I subtract, and I get 140. So now if I want to fit 14 into 140, I can look back at what I just did, and when I multiplied 14 times 10, I got exactly 140. So I'm just going to do that again. And 14 times 10 is 140. Subtract and I get 0. So then I need to circle my outside numbers, and my answer is 20. And I'm going to circle that nice and bold so I know that that's my answer. Alright, let's look down at number 2. 580 divided by 5. So I could start with 10, which would be perfectly fine. It would just take me a long time to do. But I know that 5 times 10 is only 50. And since I'm trying to put 5 into a large number like 580, I'm going to actually bump up my first multiple that I'm going to multiply 5 by. And I'm going to start with 50. It seems very high, but when I figure out what 50 times 5 is, we'll see that it actually fits into 580. So I'm going to go off to the side. You may be able to do this in your head, but I like to do it off to the side just to be sure that I'm not doing anything wrong. 5 times 0 is 0, and 5 times 5 is 25, so I get 250. So 5 times 50 is 250, which is actually a nice number to subtract from 580. It'll make our problem a little bit shorter. So 0 minus 0 is 0, 8 minus 5 is 3, and 5 minus 2 is 3. So now I have 330. I can look back at what I just did and see if that would work. Would 5 times 50 being 250 work here? It would, because 250 is less than 330. So I'm just going to do 50 again on the outside. 5 times 50 was 250, so I'll write that again. 0 minus 0. I can't do 3 minus 5, so I'm going to borrow. 13 minus 5 is 8. And then our result is 80. So how many times can I fit 5 into 80? I could just stick with 10, because I know 10 times 5 is 50, and that's less than 80. 5 times 10 is 50. We subtract, and we get 30. So how many times can we fit 5 into 30? Well, I know that 6 times 5 is 30, so I can fit 5 into 30 6 times. And now 6 times 5 is 30. Subtract, and I don't have a remainder, so now I need to circle all my side numbers. 50 plus 50 is 100. 100 plus 10 is 110, and then plus 6 is 116. So that is my answer, 116. All right, and then we can look at the bottom one. 275 divided by 25. As I look at the 5s that both numbers end with, it makes me predict that there will not be a remainder, and that 25 is going to go into 275 evenly. We just don't know how many times yet. All right, so we're going to start with 10, because from looking at 25, I know that 25 times 10 is 250, and that will fit into 275. So let's start with 10, and we get 250. Subtract, and we end up with, we end up with 25. So that was easy. How many times does 25 fit into 25? Once. So then I do 1 times 25, gives me 25. I subtract, and I get 0. So then we circle our side answers. We don't have a remainder, just like we predicted. And 10 plus 1 is 11, and our answer is 11.